Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Welcome once again to Whiskey Congress. Once again, I am on the road calling from lovely Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and once again, I'm not drinking whiskey. Steve, how you doing, man?
I'm good, my man. I am home in Cleveland, and I am drinking whiskey.
What do you got?
I'm drinking Ardbeg and Owa. It
All right.
is the seasonal release from Ardbeg that was quite the hassle for me to get my hands on, but it is quite good. So that's what I'm sipping on. I've been battling with my daughter for a portion of the night. She
supremacy of the house, which has been
she just was refusing to go to bed. So she and I had a couple stern talks, and then she needed water, and she needed a book, and then she needed a different teddy bear, and she needed reminded where her monkey was because she left it in Youngstown with her grandma. And then she wondered if we were ever going to get it back. And then she wanted to, and then this is where she got me. She told me she missed Dora, our dog, that we had to put down. So I had to let her pet the dog paw imprint, which actually, oddly enough, that calms her down. For whatever reason, she gets all worked up, and that sometimes is the go-to for her to relax. Like I'll carry her over and she'll touch Dora's paw, and then she'll relax.
I miss Dora too, so I love your dog.
Well,
and your daughter, but I mean...
Right. You miss Dora when I fed her the good food and not so much the bad food.
True, she did have some moments, but I love the fact that every time I came to your place, she would run up and just sideswipe me and let me know it was my job to, rub her back and pet her and call her big puppy.
Yes.
I want to say a quick thank you. All right, so first of all, the Philadelphia 76ers were just eliminated from the playoffs, and the Cavaliers will face the Boston Celtics in the finals. And on that note, Dave from Philly, our friend of the show, sent us some beers to try and talk about on the show, which we will do. So first of all, thank you, Dave. Sorry about your team, but you are still Super Bowl champs.
He got a Super Bowl this year, so he's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So you being out of town, I went by your place and grabbed them off the porch and put them in the fridge. And it looks like, you can only tell so much about beer from the bottle or the can that it's in. But, as I was putting them in the fridge, I was reading them and they all look interesting. My thing with beer is, part of the reason Dave is doing this because he doesn't feel that I have a very sophisticated beer palate. So he figures that I think his thought process is, if he introduces me to better beer, then that may help, enhance my beer palate. And I will say that there's definitely a chance that could happen. But my theory behind beer drinking is that I'm really a huge fan of whiskey. I love whiskey. And if I'm drinking over the course of a night, and I know that I'm going to be drinking a fair amount of whiskey, then I tend to back off of beer. And if I am drinking beer, I keep it light just because, one, your craft beers tend to have heavier alcohol by volume.
Yes, they do.
And then, some of the whiskeys that I drink tend to be well above the, typical 80 proof that you find with, an Absolute or a Grey Goose or whatever. So when you mix craft beer and high-end whiskey, you get a lot of alcohol in your system, which... as you get older, that's not necessarily the goal to be the drunkest guy in the room. So I sacrifice beer for whiskey. That's my process. But I will definitely partake in Dave's gifts to us, and I will have an open mind and an open palate. But when we do it, I probably will back off the whiskey a little bit to balance it out.
Probably a good choice. And you did kind of challenge my manhood, but I didn't like the super strong whiskey the other day. I'm not going to do the same to you. Steve, I'm taking the high road. How do you like that?
I did not challenge your manhood.
You called me a sissy or something. Yeah.
I called you a Nancy boy.
A Nancy boy. Oh, sorry. Okay. My mom's name is Nancy, you prick. All right. Anyway, let's get on to.
Actually, it's accurate. You are Nancy's boy.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the whole time. Well, that's a Sarah Huckabee Sanders type of spin. Well done. All right. Speaking of spin, and I don't know if you saw, but I put an article up on our website, whiskeycongress.com, and it also got republished by Political Storm. My thoughts on the Iran deal, or the Trump let's back out of the Iran deal. I'm not happy about it. I think it's a huge mistake. I think the simplification that happens in the media, and I'm going to put most of the blame on the right-wing media at this moment, as to say, well, we're just going to back up and look for a better deal, is a huge oversimplification. I think backing out of the Iran deal, if we do, really compromises our allies, mostly in Europe, because this was not some rogue Obama move as has been spun by a lot on the right. It was a multinational deal to basically say, hey, you stop trying to make a nuclear, stop trying to create the materials necessary for a nuclear weapon, and we'll stop watchdogging you. Here's a, way for us to agree on what you can do and what we can look at. And as a result, we will stop imposing sanctions. And if we back out of that, that's gone. I mean, we are too big of a player in the game. I think it hurts international relations on a lot of levels. And tonight I saw that there are allegations that Iranian forces firing out of Syria shot missiles at Israel. Those reports are unconfirmed. So, I mean, by the time this gets published, who knows what that will mean, but this really bothers me. Your thoughts?
Jim, I honestly, this is a really complex issue, and I don't know if the average citizen, or even, some of your, even some of your mainstream media, pundits, journalists, if they really have enough data to fully understand the situation, right? I mean, it's on the surface, based off of what we know, what's been presented to us by Obama, what's been presented to us by the current administration, and then even the information that the Israeli government, Netanyahu, sorry, I kept wanting to say Netanyahu presented, earlier this week. We still only have a part of the picture. I believe that Obama's intentions made a lot of sense. I think that the idea of saying we'll back off the sanctions of your country, will allow your economy to open up, will give you back money that's been held up, money that was yours, but money that's basically been held in a escrow type situation over the last however many years. But in return, we will keep a close eye on what you're doing with your nuclear program. And you need to keep it so that you're just developing nuclear energy to help better your resources, so you're not reliant on oil, or not so much reliant on oil. I think all that makes sense. And I think also what makes sense is if you look at and again, if the data is accurate, if you look at where Iran was in terms of enriching uranium, which is what you need to do to have a nuclear bomb, they were in the low 20%, about the 20th percentile of what they needed to actually get there. So they had a ways to go, and that hasn't changed, and it's gone down over the last couple of years. So it seems like it was going in the right direction. Now the other side of that is what conservative pundits will tell you, and John Bolton or anyone of that ilk will say is, well, while they're letting us in and we're able to inspect what they're doing at place A, where they're also doing things that they're not supposed to be doing at place X, Y, and Z, where we don't have access to, or we don't know to look there. Now, I don't know how they know that if we don't know where these places are and we don't have access to them. But if that, and the reality is that could be true.
Okay,
and
it could be true.
And it could be true, and we don't know if it is. And all I'm saying is, I think you have to look at this from both. You have to look at this from both sides. We can't just attack it because Trump is doing it, and we don't like Trump.
But I'm not.
But hold on, and the other side can't attack it because they just didn't like Obama. So I think that we have to figure out the level of veracity to what is Iran holding up their part of the deal? Because listen, Iran did a number of things, and we even talked about them on the show that violated this deal. Whether it was firing missiles at Israel, or some of the things that they were doing behind the scenes, backdoor with North Korea. I mean, I think that while people say it was a bad deal on Obama's stance, but I don't think the deal was bad, other than the fact that you can't trust Iran, and so if they are doing things undercover, then Then what does the deal get us?
All right. Here's my 100% challenge on that. If we have an international agreement in effect with Iran and multiple other nations, and they violate things, we have options that we can take as an international community. If we withdraw and say we are going to continue to engage them on this issue, we essentially have two choices: rhetoric and talk, or military. And rhetoric and talk has gotten us nowhere, and a military interaction with Iran would be really scary on a whole lot of levels for a whole lot of millions of people. So by choosing to back out of a diplomatic engagement, even if it is a flawed one, even if it is a one that's being violated, you can hold them accountable to violations if you have an agreement in place. If you say, nope, we're tearing the deal up, it's bad, then you've got nothing to stand on other than those two options, at least as far as I can tell.
But they're not necessarily just tearing the deal up. I mean, every year the deal had to be renewed. And yes, every year the president had to, look at it, and it had to be certified. And Trump is basically saying he's not recertifying it.
All right, that's not how I understood it. But
they're using the proper legal channels to remove themselves from the deal. We may not like the fact that they're doing it, but they are doing it the right way. The question is does it make sense? Now, I mean, if Iran did actually attack Israel, then it looks. I don't know what that means. Right? I don't. Obviously, there's a connection, and obviously Iran is using it, but.
It's been a long time since Israel has responded with an aggressive military action, but every time it has in the Middle East, from the 6 Days War, which I'm getting way too political nerdy on people, but it typically has gone very poorly for those who attacked Israel. And that is almost 100% because of our supplying Israel with technology, weapons, and them supplying us with money to do so. And I'm not anti-Israel by any means, but it's kind of funny. You and I, a couple of years ago, had a big talk about, how the Israelis treat Palestinians in Israeli-occupied areas, and this is going down a totally different path. And we could talk for hours and talk about some really ugly things, but if you'll let me back off and just say this needs to have an eye kept on it. It could turn ugly fast. I think the administration made a huge mistake.
I mean, listen, based off of what we already know, Iran, now again, it hasn't been substantiated. It hasn't been confirmed if it was indeed Iran that attacked Israel. We don't know what Israel's response to this is going to be. You can kind of
this
assume,
is legit breaking news. This is like CNN. This is what breaking news is actually, even though.
But we don't know how that is going to turn out. So, but based off of the little information we do know, it looks like you're right. It was a bad idea. Now the question is, was Iran banking on this to begin with? Did they say, all right, as soon as Trump was elected, did Iran look at it and say, look, he's going to pull out of this deal at some point, so let's make a half-hearted gesture to try to keep the deal with Europe. But as soon as they're officially out, then we hate Israel, so let's go attack them.
Well, even more to support that point. I mean, Trump and I criticized this in my article, that Trump basically said, I will tell you what I'm going to do about that deal on this date. So he made it like a reality show or a game show. It's like, and I will reveal my Iran strategy right now. And that basically gave them a chance to say, okay, it's going to be A or B. And we know when A or B will be decided. So, like I said, I'm happy to move on in terms of topics, but I am very displeased with how this has been handled by my government.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's one of those things where there were a number of things that I wish that Obama would have had more cooperation from Congress, so that these things
or any.
Right. So we had more. I mean, because he put a number of executive orders out there, and he did some things that just didn't have enough support. So he put them out there, and they were kind of paper doctrines. And without that congressional support and the processes that are involved with those, he left himself open for this very thing that's happening, where you see a president that doesn't agree with him or those things that he put in place begin to roll them back. So you look at things and you want to go through and say, Obama accomplished this, Obama accomplished that. But he did it through executive order. And so the next president who comes in who doesn't agree with him is using executive order and using the mechanisms that are made available to him to remove them. And so part of that is on Obama, and part of that is on the previous congressional
Steve, I think it dates back
members.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, and that's and I was just going to say there, and it's on the previous congressional members that who didn't work with him. So if this blows up, if Trump pulling out of this blows up, a lot of it is going to be because Obama didn't have the support to do this the right way or the more firm way. Then a lot of people are going to say, well, it's all Obama's fault, right? Because we know that if this blows up, it's just going to go back to Obama, right? And so it's like, and Trump's going to be like, well, I pulled out because Obama had a bad deal, and now look what happened. It's all Obama's fault.
Sure, but here's one little reality that I want to put out there. It feels to us like this started with Obama, but then the Bush invasion of Iraq did actually have congressional backing, but Vietnam didn't. Right, that's why it was the Vietnam conflict, not the Vietnam War. From a legal standpoint, it didn't have full congressional backing. The executive ability to use military might without full support, without legal support of Congress, dates back way longer than I think tends to register in our heads, and that's worth mentioning because it has been way too easily extended through internal legal loopholes.
I'm not talking about just war in general. I mean, even if you look at the Affordable Care Act and some of the other things, how they were shoehorned in, kind of into existence from a policy standpoint. That's all I'm saying. I'm
okay.
This wasn't just pointed at war specifically. I get it's not specific to Obama. All I'm saying is there were a number of his policies besides foreign policy that he used basically executive orders and executive action. He didn't have full support of Congress, and now this is why some of these things are being so easily rolled back by Trump, whether he has congressional support or not, because he's just using the same power Obama did to eliminate it.
That's completely legitimate, and inaccurate. Okay. So much going on as always. Gina Haspel is potentially going to be named the new director of the CIA. John McCain came out and said he would not support her. She was attributed to being in charge of multiple black sites during the Iraq War. And I think John McCain has a personal reason to say...
Yeah, you're damn right he does. I mean, the dude, he was a veteran of a foreign war. He was captured and detained,
tortured.
Some of the injuries that you see, like his lack of movement in his, I believe it is his left arm or right. Well, he's only got two arms, but one of his arms, he doesn't have very good movement. That's from being tortured. Some of the scars on his face, that's from being tortured. So when someone comes up that condoned torture, oversaw torture, or partook in torture, then it makes a lot of sense that he's going to say, yeah, I want nothing to do with that.
And you almost went Nathan Jessup on us there. Were you trying to? You sneaky son of a gun. Don't think that didn't get noticed. All right. So anyway, that's a big deal, and we'll see where that plays out.
Well, here I think don't let's not short riff that. I would like to dig in on that a little bit more, because so while John McCain, I fully understand where he's coming from, I honestly think that this woman is probably the best person for the job, because I think that anyone else that Trump nominates, they're not going to be coming from the CIA. And while this woman was the head of, she oversaw this black site, she, destroyed documentation that dealt with torture. It's an ugly side of what the CIA did after 9/11, and no one's comfortable with it. No one likes it. Most of us aren't comfortable with it, and most of us don't like it. I do believe at the time she was doing what she felt was right. I'm sure she had some reservations.
I'm sure she had to follow orders to a degree, but the following orders argument has some unacceptable angles.
They do, and we don't know what information was obtained. I mean, some say nothing good. Some say we got some very detailed, specific information. We'll never know. It's the CIA. But what we do know is that this woman has been a part of the CIA for an extended period of time. She's basically been running the CIA because, Mike Pompeo has been promoted to Secretary of State of State. And whenever Mike Pompeo was off, snoozing and canoodling with the president, giving in-person briefings and things like that, Gina Haspel is the one who was left in charge to do the day-to-day at the CIA. So she already knows the job. And for some of these nominations, I think we have to get past some of the partisanship and just look at, is this person qualified to do the job? And are they capable of doing the job? And are they capable of being good at said job? And I think that this woman is. And so, if we want to get hung up over torture, basically we say, listen, obviously we all agree we can't do that again. Are you going to do it again? No. Okay, let's move on. Let's get her confirmed.
All right. I mean, I've got mixed thoughts about that in terms of what Trump said on the campaign trail, and I don't want to go down that road. I agree she's probably qualified. I 100% agree that what the CIA does is by its very nature ugly and is not and cannot be exposed to the American public. If everyone knew what they were doing, they couldn't do their jobs. I do know that I have not been great about doing my homework about the CIA and my allegations that the crack epidemic did in fact involve the CIA. I have not quit on that.
That wasn't the assignment. Wasn't necessarily if they were involved. It was just to figure out what their role was.
May have been okay.
An impact.
All right.
But anyway,
I'm still on the case. So
okay.
So if I end up getting whacked, it was the CIA who took me out because I knew too much. Or Steve or Steve took me out because he felt like he was in a shitty mood.
Both are possible. Both are highly possible.
Actually, anyway. So Steve, all right. So I started off my day in a pretty shitty mood when it came to politics because a friend of mine, I've mentioned Mike the dentist from New York. I woke up to a text and it showed a picture of Eric Schneiderman, and it said, "This guy was talking about women's rights 3 weeks ago. LOL. Love the hypocrisy." And I agree that it appears there's little to no doubt that Eric Schneiderman is at best he's been accused of some pretty awful things. It looks like there's very, very strong evidence that he's a complete scumbag. He has resigned as Attorney General of the state of New York. Good that he's resigned. Again, he insists that this is a false allegation. He will get his day in court, and it appears he will be prosecuted. So also good, if what he's been accused of, and if you don't know, he's been accused of on multiple occasions being physically abusive to women, including hitting them so hard during what started off as romantic encounters that led to bruises, doctor's visits, bleeding in the face. I mean, if the allegations are true, fuck this guy, put him in jail. The reason I'm annoyed about this whole thing is my right-wing buddy, who is a complete just regurgitating dope of right-wing media, said, this guy's a scumbag. And yeah, he is. And no one's defending him. And I did go low road, which I'm sure shocks you, and said, I say fuck this guy just the way you said fuck Roy Moore. Oh wait, you didn't. And it didn't go well from there. But I stand by the logic of that discussion. And in fact, I did something that I should tell you about off air, but I'll tell you about it on air. I invited this guy to talk to me on air and record what we discuss. And basically say, here's my big problem with the difference between the way these things get handled in one direction versus the other. Eric Schneiderman, accused of stuff that is awful, sounds guilty as hell. His career as a public official is over until he shows that he did not do anything wrong. Roy Moore, accused essentially of physically, sexually assaulting young teenage girls, got defended by Republicans up to the level of the president, and Fox News and other right-wing media outlets defended this guy to the hilt up until he lost and after. And the argument that my buddy Mike came back with was, well, maybe the reason he didn't step down is because he was innocent. Would you step down if you were innocent? No, I wouldn't. But that's a bullshit argument. And I think this is a strong illustration of the differences between what happens when you put party ahead of what's right and vice versa. And yes, I'm going pro-lefty here, but I stand by what I just said. You are generally more centrist than me. I'll stop talking for a minute and let you come at me, bro, and we'll have a legit come at me, bro, later.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that there are plenty politicians that have been accused of some pretty terrible things on the left and have stayed in office or kept their jobs, or the things have been covered up and swept under the rug, or have been brought into the open forum and they've paid little to no penalty. The poster boy for that is Bill Clinton. And if you want to say, well,
it was consensual. Well, no, there were allegations of non-consensual. There were allegations.
There's some pretty hefty allegations against Bill Clinton, and so and he's still revered by the left to a degree. I think the Clintons have fallen somewhat out of favor, more so because they just didn't know when to step away from the spotlight, or just to step away in general. And so I think some of the people on the left are starting to sour on them, especially women in the feminist movement, and even the black community, when we go back and we look at the words that they've said and what they've done. So, and there, I mean, there's also, I think I don't know if you really, I think you're thinking surface level, but I guarantee you, if you go through and you start to Google Democrats accused of sexual whatever, and I guarantee you, you'll go through and you'll find a number of people that oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't realize that. And the same for Republicans. We're in the moment. So in the moment, it's a Democrat who's coming under fire. The thing with Roy Moore is, yes, all those accusations were made, but all that stuff was from 30 years ago, and
True.
there was virtually no way to prove it.
True.
I mean, so that was a little bit different. Roy Moore was standing on it because there's no way that you could prove it. And when you go back and you actually look at the stories, you can say, all right, I don't know, like I don't know what happened there, and maybe it was all true, but we don't know. And I'm not saying that he should have been defended the way he was. It was kind of ridiculous, but to be on the safe side, they should have backed away from him long before that was even a race. I mean, the reason why they even brought Roy Moore in as a candidate is insane. The fact that, I mean, and that just, we said a long time ago, way back when Steve Bannon brought this whole thing up and these things kind of started to slip out, and we said this is gonna either make or break Steve Bannon, who was the main one supporting Roy Moore, and ultimately it broke him. And I think it was more people following Bannon's lead because he was on such a hot streak. He was one of the big reasons that Trump got elected. So I think that had more to do with loyalty to Steve Bannon and loyalty to the overall movement than it did with, we just believe Roy Moore is this great guy. I think they threw everything to the wind and they just said it was just a mob mentality. And so, but the left is guilty of that as well. And so I don't think that there's any value in saying we treat our bad guys better or worse than you treat your bad guys. I don't see the value in it because both sides have bad guys that have gotten away with bad shit. And in the moment right now, the Democrats have a bad guy who's in the spotlight, but
no,
I
he's
guarantee
out of the spotlight. He's done.
Well, he's still in the spotlight because, I mean, if I type his name in, his name comes up in relevant recent posts all over Google. So I would say he's still in the spotlight.
Okay.
He doesn't have his job anymore. And, he's the scourge of the seven seas, but he's the guy that's getting all the attention right now. And so it's easy to prop him up as, look, we're doing the right thing here. But I guarantee you can go back down the line and look at, we just had this flood of people with the Me Too movement. We can go right down the line of people, and some of them are politicians who maybe they lost their job, but are they being prosecuted? Are they really facing the sort of justice that they should for the things that they've been accused of? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of women out there who are saying, fuck no. So let's be careful getting on the high horse about, whose bad guys are being treated worse at the moment.
I'm not calling about necessarily whose bad guys are treating the worst. I'm calling out the media support of them because I don't know that you could still find a Fox or Breitbart or other right-wing media outlet that would say Roy Moore is a scumbag who is most likely a serial molester, even though all the evidence points to that. And I don't think you'll find a left-wing outlet that will say that Eric Schneiderman is not a fucking dirtbag and fuck him, and they won't lift a finger to protect him. So, and again, this is partly because I got woke up to you're a hypocrite because go ahead.
That's fair, but at the same time, you have many more liberal mainstream media outlets than you do conservative outlets that are considered mainstream. I mean, right now you have Fox News and Breitbart
and Patriot
and what?
Patriot.
Right. I mean, Patriot. Yes, Patriot. he's not a media outlet. He's a person who has a show.
Okay.
Right. I mean, but
he has a syndicated show that gets way more credit than it should. And all right.
Okay, but either way.
Yes.
But I mean, you also have MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, Huffington Post, Washington Post. Slate.
Okay, and name one of those that will defend Eric Schneiderman.
And I'm not. Well, that's what I'm saying is that there's so many more of them. So, like the number of liberal media outlets outnumber the number of conservative outlets. So, they're you're right. But I mean, there's so few conservative media outlets that they're like, okay, so the fuck what? I mean, I get what you're saying, that a lot of most of your conservatives get their news from Fox and Breitbart, and that's all that they listen to. But there's so many more liberal media outlets out there that are putting forth the message that this argument that you're having with this guy, or that this is not just you two, this narrative of it's such an inconsequential back and forth when you really think about it, right? Like, okay, yes, the conservatives didn't denounce Roy Moore the way we feel that they should have. That's fine, but you had 50 other media outlets that all condemned him.
And you have zero accused left-wing media outlets defending Eric Schneiderman, Anthony Weiner, Al Franken.
Okay,
different debate.
Okay, so great. Where does that get us? What's the point?
I was called a hypocrite. I stand by the fact that I am not, and the idea that right-wing.
But see, and I'll tell you right now, like that's a huge issue that we have right now with political discourse. Right, you and your buddy get into a fucking pissing contest over who's the bigger hypocrite over some guy that abuses women, and you lose the whole idea that guy was the top dog in terms of law and order in the state of New York.
Oh,
right.
No,
that psycho.
Right, no, I don't.
No. That psychopath was the head of law and order. So now, instead of saying, what sort of policies did this guy institute while he was the attorney general? How did they affect women? How did they affect minorities? Because this guy is a head case, just beating the shit out of women that he's having relationships with. Instead, it's, well, the media denounced the mainstream left media denounced him, and the conservatives wouldn't denounce him, or this happened and that happened. Like that, the shit that you guys are talking about really doesn't fucking matter.
I say this is where we disagree, because I'm saying that I agree with everything you said about Eric Schneiderman being a fucking dirtbag, and I want to see him dealt with legally and professionally in the appropriate manner, and I'm not putting my politics ahead of what should be done or shouldn't. But
this whole idea of show me a Republican where the same thing happened, like the tit for tat, that aspect of it, that's the part where
you're right. That is where I went down the rabbit hole, or down the shithole.
And you're not the only one doing it.
No, I'm not.
You're not the only one by any such.
I'm probably on the top whatever percent of people being open-minded about it. And what I did today was not classy, and I still invite Mike, the dentist, to have a discussion with me about other things on our show, independent of you. I think it should be a one-on-one. I wouldn't be fair to tag team him on that. But I'm just sticking by my point that the left-wing media does not defend left-wing scumbags based on their political affiliation in the same degree that it happens on the other side. That is my point, and I'm not doing a two rights make a wrong. I'm not I'm simply saying it's a false equivalency to say, well, look at this guy. He gave a speech in front of a women's rights group 3 months ago, and he was not burned down by the left-wing media. You're right. He wasn't. We didn't know this. Now we do, and fuck him. Eric Schneiderman.
Well, I mean, I can make an argument.
Go ahead.
I mean, listen, Trump put a tweet out back in 2013 that said Eric Schneiderman is going down, and it wasn't because he was a crook. Right? That was 2013. That's a archived tweet from Donald Trump. So I can make the argument that this is feigned indignation from your mainstream media, because if Trump knew it, I guarantee you people on the left in the mainstream media knew about this before this went down, and they're only saying something now. So if you knew that this guy was beating the shit out of women before, and don't tell me that no one in the mainstream media knew about it beforehand, because those fuckers know everything. There's a reason why
that's fair. I mean, what you just said to me is news to me, and I'm not going to defend people who ignored ugly truths because it was politically inexpedient. So I will happily say that if I'm wrong about that, then there are flaws in my argument based on that angle, not on once things are exposed and the hypocrisy that comes from them. But
it's all connected though. Like, I mean, if you knew about something, if you knew that someone was dirty before, not you specifically, but if people in the media knew, or had an inkling, or there was a rumbling that this guy
and they ignored a story, then fuck
right, and they ignored it for whatever reason, because he's the Attorney General of New York and we like his policies on this, or he's connected to this person, or he could be the next mayor, or
he's a cool guy at cocktail parties,
or whatever, or he gives us information, whatever their reason might be, and then all of a sudden the story comes out, so they're just like, okay, everybody, we all say we hate this guy, right? Like, screw, like, obviously he's not going to be governor, obviously there's nothing to gain from him anymore, he's no longer a viable source, so let's burn him at the stake. That is absolutely no better than when conservatives come out and defend a Roy Moore literally to the death of his campaign, right? Just because they don't want to admit that they were wrong and that Steve Bannon was wrong until well after the fact. Now everybody, you know what I mean? That's all I'm saying is that neither one of those things is right. And I firmly believe that people knew about this. So this whole, I'm so appalled at his behavior. That whole thing from the media, I don't buy, which is why I punt on the whole narrative between you and your buddy.
All right. You know what? I mean, I will not disagree with you. If this was a poorly hidden secret or whatever, and I'm just, all right, so from my perspective, I'm responding to things that came to light in a few days, and good point, Steve. I mean, if this was a hidden but well-known reality because, well, this guy's a rising star, we don't want to step on his
Jim, if he is the Attorney General of New York.
Yes.
He is sleeping with women and beating them to the point where they have to go to the hospital. You really think no one in New York and the New York media knew about this?
I mean, it's the first time hearing
what we know.
Look,
okay, but I mean, and no, all due respect, who the fuck are you? I mean, I'm sorry.
No,
right? I mean, like, I mean, all due respect. I mean, I'm sorry, Jim Lalka didn't know it, but like, what are your ties to the New York media, to the New York government, and to the actual city of New York political scene?
I'm actually closer to as cool as you, based on something I'll bring up in a few minutes. But you're right. You're right. I have no inside knowledge of this. I'm responding to what I've learned through the media. My bigger point is that once the light got shown on this, the left-wing media didn't defend this guy when he was not defensible. The same was not true. But you're also right that saying that, well, okay, so once you got caught, you were a good guy. Where were you when no one was looking? That is also indefensible. And so I agree with you in that angle.
All right.
You want to know why it was cool as you?
Why is
or
that?
Almost as cool as you have gained in coolness on you? I bought a smoker.
Oh, nice.
I did. All right.
Nice.
Yes.
I mean,
I'm not quite as cool as... What's that?
No, because you still have zero ties to New York news media. So
I bought a smoker.
I literally thought you were going to tell me
that gears.
I literally thought you were going to tell me that you bang some reporter that works for the New York Daily News.
Part two, I banged a reporter from the New York City News yesterday, and she told me that Eric Schneiderman is innocent. Anthony Weiner is in fact a stand-up human being, and Donald Trump murdered puppies.
All right, so you had sex with a
no, I got a smoker.
So you had sex with a psych patient who is actually from
different
Iowa
discussion,
and can't read.
Different angle. I apologize for derailing us, but I did buy a smoker.
No, it's fine. No, actually, that's awesome. I love it. That just increases our ability, our ability smoked meat capacity
to cook multiple good meals. Yes. All right.
God, so now we're not just gonna glaze over this. Now we can have, Whiskey Congress rib burn-offs.
Oh no!
Right?
I see. No. You've got a year head start on me in skills, and I know your smoking skills, and they are solid. I need, and I hate to.
I'm not gonna listen. I'm not gonna wait for you, bro.
I need points. No, go ahead. I just need points. Steve's ribs, Jim's ribs, plus 3.5 at my home stadium. I just
fair enough.
All right, we'll figure that out. But yeah, mine's an electric one. I bought it on. I know I'm a cheater. They're easy.
Okay. Well.
Snob.
Okay.
You called Dave and I out for being beer snobs earlier. You're a smoker snob. You got your charcoal one. You're more old school. All right, one more media issue, because this really, I think, goes all around the world today on this. So, a lot of people on the right are furious that Stormy Daniels appeared on Saturday Night Live. And also, I listened to Breitbart going into work the other day, and Breitbart was calling out the left-wing media for focusing on Stormy Daniels with all these important things going on. And we talked about a lot of them at the beginning of this show right now, and everyone's right. Well, not everyone's right, but Breitbart is right that the media focusing on Stormy Daniels when you've got Iran, a CIA director, all this important shit going on, and you're talking about Michael Avenatti. Yeah, him.
The attorney for Stephanie Clifford, aka Stormy Daniels.
All this shit. CNN, who I've always had a beef with, but do still watch. They spend so much time focusing on the Stormy Daniels thing, which in the grand scheme is absolutely irrelevant to the lives of everyone. And I was, like I said, I was listening to Breitbart in the morning on my drive into work in the morning, and they were saying, well, CNN and MSNBC and all these left-wing media outlets really deserve a big, punch in the face for their focusing on such irrelevant shit when there's so many important things going on. And all I can say is, amen, brothers, you're right.
I think so. I fully agree with you. I fully agree with Breitbart on that. And I'll say this about Breitbart. I listen to them frequently because I like to hear what the conservative right-wing media is saying. Not necessarily alt-right, but I like to hear what their vantage point is. And they're a little bit less melodramatic. They're a little less infotainment than, let's say, a Fox News or a Rush Limbaugh or even an Alex Jones.
Oh, what do you mean, Steve? Look,
or Alex Jones. don't settle yourself. Settle down. Simmer. They are more direct about specific issues. Now they put their own spin on it. They have their dog whistles. They will contort things to fit their narrative, but it is more actual information and news with their own spin on it. So you take it for what it's worth, and you can actually they do a good job of reporting because they have to, because they're smaller, they don't have as much money, so they need their followers and their base to trust them. So their information needs to be accurate, but they will they will spin it. And so in certain things, especially when you look at exactly what you were talking about with Stormy Daniels and her being on Saturday Night Live and the amount of news coverage that it got from MSNBC and CNN, they're exactly right that there are more important things going on. And her being on Saturday Night Live, who cares? It doesn't. Leave that to your entertainment section. Leave that to your gossip vertical or whatever you want to call it. Like there's her being on Saturday Night Live does nothing to minimize or hurt her case against Donald Trump. Hell, Donald Trump has been on Saturday Night Live, and when he was on it, I wanted to throw up because his dancing made me uncomfortable. So I think that we have to be able to sift through the bullshit, and we have to recognize that there is some credence to the idea. And I've said this, and I think you've come on board with me to a degree that the media, especially your mainstream left media, at times does a disservice to the very people that they're trying to reach, to their audience, to everyone who absorbs media because of their lack of focus. When CNN or someone on NBC, whether it's Brian Williams or whoever, they put out a story and it's not accurate and they have to retract it, or they have to fire people because they lied, or the story wasn't accurate, or it wasn't true, or because they ran with the first thing and they didn't get the number of credible sources that they need, that does a disservice to the media, or that does a disservice to every citizen that is relying on the media to be that fourth branch of government to kind of keep it all in check, right? We forget that the media, the media is the ultimate embodiment of the First Amendment and free speech. And so when the media starts to go awry, that directly impacts our ability as citizens to really process what's going on around us. And so for them to focus on Stormy Daniels being on Saturday Night Live, that does everyone who watches news, everyone who exists in the United States, it does them a disservice because there's no impact there. You showing disdain and outrage because she took the time to be on Saturday Night Live. Listen, her other job is to be a porn star, and she's been doing that all along. You know why I know? Because I watch a lot of fucking porn. And Brazzers right now has all sorts of shit for Stormy Daniels. www.brazzers.com. There's 2 Z's in that. And then also Penthouse made her the pet of the millennium or something like that. So she's still doing her job, right? So you're not outraged that she's going back to her job, but you're pissed that she's doing Saturday Night Live. Are you insane?
So that's the right wing anger, is that she's doing Saturday Night Live, and then and also the whole thing was that, and I think the legitimate point, and this is from me defending Breitbart, is that the mainstream media, the MSNBCs, the NBCs, the CBS, are focusing on her. She's fucking irrelevant. I don't care where Trump shot a load in 2006. Stop it. All this important shit's going on, and you're focusing on that.
Hold on.
What?
Her being on Saturday Night Live is irrelevant. Her being a porn star, her and Donald Trump.
And if Trump banged her, who cares?
Wait, just listen. Trump having sex with her is irrelevant. If they paid her off because she said, I'm going to talk and I will screw up your relationship with the evangelicals right before the election, and they said, okay, here's $130,000 to shut up, that is a crime.
Potentially.
Right? That's potentially. If it went down the way I said it did, it's a crime.
Okay.
If she said, hey, I'm going to tell everyone that we had an affair and it's going to impact your relationship with all those religious right-wing nuts who love you so much right now, unless you give me X amount of dollars. And they said, well, we don't want that to happen. So let's put an LLC together. Let's put a company together. And then we will pay you out of that company. Listen, that matters because they're trying to dodge campaign financials. Now, is it enough to impeach Trump? Is it enough to kick him out of the office? No, but it's enough to, at the very least, say, all right, well, somebody's going to have to deal with this, whether it's Michael Cohen or Donald Trump or whatever, and someone's going to have to answer questions truthfully about it. And if they lie about it, then that's when you have, perjury charges and impeachments and everything else.
Sure.
But there is value to it.
But so the way I think that may have gone down is was it NBC? I think had that story. The Washington Post is going to run with that story. Stormy Daniels allegedly got paid to not talk about it. The contract situation I won't even get into because I don't know. And when it all hit the fan,
I read the contract, and the issue is when that contract came out. I believe it was mid to late October of 2016.
Because it would have burned potentially could have burned the election of Trump. Which again,
right.
if there are campaign finance legal issues,
Jim,
fine,
I don't know why you keep saying if that happens.
Okay.
There's no ifs or about it. If you look at the timing, the fact that
this is why I love our show, Steve, because suddenly suddenly I sound like a Trump defender and you sound like an attacker.
All I'm saying, right? All I'm saying is that,
and we're both being honest, so it's awesome.
That's the issue with Stormy Daniels that has to be looked at. Everything else doesn't matter. Who she fucks from then until next who
is irrelevant in the grand scheme.
Right. The question is, when did they pay her and why did they pay her? We already know when. So what they have to prove is why they paid her. Did they pay her because that was standard operating procedure? Trump bangs a porn star. You pay her to shut up so nobody talks. You pay her to shut up so Melania doesn't find out. Whatever it is that standard operating procedure, or did they pay her in October? Because remember, this happened back in 2006 and 2007.
Right.
So why are they now paying her in 2016 in October?
I think it's because the story is about to get launched by NBC after the Washington Post released it. That was my understanding. Was the story was heading towards the mainstream, and they shut it down.
Right, and and again, looking at the timing of that, that's where the whole campaign finance the campaign finance aspect comes in. And if that follows, then there's a crime there. It's not enough to kick Trump out of office. If everybody comes clean after the fact, then you're going to have to decide, are we going to try to impeach Trump because of this? Right? And the Democrats may say yes, or they may say, listen, there's no chance we do it. If we do, we lose favor, and he gets even more momentum, and he ends up in office for another 4 years. There's some legitimate strategy that has to be thought about with this whole thing, but I think you do need to investigate it and play it out. But all the other stuff, Saturday Night Live, who banked who, all that stuff doesn't matter. It comes down to when the payment was made, and why it was made.
So I have a huge problem with people who claim to be legitimate media going to battle with Saturday Night Live. If you think Saturday Night Live is your opponent, don't call yourself legitimate media. I'll stop there. And I've got one more thing to talk about legitimately, but that bothers me so much. When Fox used to battle with Jon Stewart, and yes, Jon Stewart was very political, but it's Comedy Central versus a company with news in their network. Now it's against Saturday Night Live, and you're upset that Stormy Daniels, the real Stormy Daniels, was there? Come on now. If we're there as a country, we're so fucked.
My counter to you, though, is there's a lot of people who got their news from Jon Stewart. That's
on them.
Okay, fine. But the problem is that you're looking at, and there's a lot of people who, when Jon Stewart left, they jumped over and they now get their news from Trevor Noah. And you can say it's on them, but when you look at the demographics and you look at the numbers, if you slice the total number of people who are watching cable network news, and you look at the number of people that Comedy Central get, and you take those people and you look at how they process the information that they receive from the Daily Show, you have to take them seriously. You have to, if you're Fox News, you have to look at them and say they're somewhat of a competitor of ours in terms of information being disseminated. Right? Now you can sit there and say, "Oh, Comedy Central and the title and blah blah blah," but they're talking about the same issues and they're pulling away from they're probably not pulling away from the Fox demographic, but they are a demographic that's using that information, and they're conflicting directly with the same demographic of people that are watching Fox News. So you have to discredit them. If you're Fox, you have to discredit Comedy Central, whether it's Jon Stewart or Trevor Noah or Samantha Bee or
Saturday Night Live,
Stephen Colbert or Saturday Night Live, all of those, because there's so many people who watch those things, right, and then take what they saw on Saturday Night Live or The Daily Show or Stephen Colbert, and they go back and they argue with the people who watch Fox News. Right. And so if Fox News doesn't give their viewers the necessary tools to fight those people, then Fox News feels vulnerable. And I'm not saying it's all insane,
I cannot
but
disagree with you more. I mean, if Fox News feels the need to drop the gloves with Saturday Night Live,
you're like, it's not about if, they do. That's the reality of it. Right? I mean, like, we have cable news, and cable news goes all throughout the world now. Right? I mean, people are watching online. People are watching on their phones. People are watching in their TVs. There's multiple TVs in the house that are all like, you may have one house that has Fox News, and you may have or you may have one room that has Fox and another room that has Comedy Central, and it may not fit your born in 1972 sensibilities of what news should be. I actually made you younger, so you should appreciate
71, yeah, thank you.
It may not fit your sensibilities of the way news is supposed to be, but this is 2018, and all the rules have been turned upside down. So you can have your indignation and this isn't the way it's supposed to be, and if that's the way you feel about it, fine. But that's the reality of it. Fox News is competing for viewership with people that watch Comedy Central and that watch SNL and that watch all these other shows. That's just the reality of it now. It's now all intermingled, and it's not Fox News' fault. It's the fact that our citizenry, our people, we're stupid. The people who, I mean, that's just the reality of it. We, the people who are taking in this information and deciding that they're going to get their news from Trevor Noah and company, or the crew from SNL, or from Stephen Colbert, like, we're stupid. Those are the stupid ones.
All right. I'm not, at this stage of the night, I'm not even going to argue that it is so stupid to compare Trevor Noah / Jon Stewart / whatever to Fox News and to equivalent them. If people do that, then that's on them.
But if you watch some of those shows on Fox, like if you watch whatever that show they have on in the morning, I mean, that show is a
Fox and Friends.
Talking about Fox and Friends, or
the one that the president calls into.
Oh my God!
Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're not. I mean, but he does. But I mean, if you watch those shows, like, those shows aren't news shows. Those shows are, I don't know. I mean, it's
infotainment. You've used the word. You're right.
Those shows are literally Regis and Kelly on cable network news. I mean, that's all it is.
You're not wrong. My point. All right. You know what? My point is that the fact that we accept that as reality is so fucked that, and the fact that Fox News or CNN or MSNBC wants to drop down and take on Comedy Central is a huge contributor into why we're this fucked.
Yeah, but Comedy Central did a pretty good job of, like, Jon Stewart himself in The Daily Show did a good job of building a product. They built a product that drew enough people to it that got everybody's attention. Right. So if you're mad at anybody, you should probably be mad at Jon Stewart for being so damn good at his job.
Just like I shouldn't be mad at Saturday Night Live.
All right.
If Saturday Night Live is more true.
See, Jim, now you're just being stubborn, 40-something white guy. That is literally what you're doing.
You can try that. Go ahead.
That's. I mean, but Jim, I mean, what you're like. You can argue that it's not supposed to be that way, but it is that way. Like, there's no, like, you can't debate it. That's just the way it is. The numbers are there. There's nothing that you can say that, like, you can't say, well, there's not that many people that watch the. Yes, there are, right? I mean, there may not, like, there's less people who watch it now because Jon Stewart isn't there and Trevor Noah isn't what Jon Stewart is, but there's still a massive number of people who watch it, and there's still that, which means that when Fox and CNN and all the cable news networks went away from just being objective news and they went into infotainment, they put themselves in the category of Comedy Central and The Daily Show, because The Daily Show is the exact same thing. It's infotainment. They provide entertainment and information, but they have a comedy slant, right? Fox News and Fox and Friends and the 5 at 5, they provide information, entertainment with a conservative slant, with some comedy and some dickishness. And whatever the shows are on NBC and whatever the shows on CNN, they all decided, instead of just being objective providers of news, that they wanted more viewership and they wanted more commercial and ad money. So they became infotainment, and they put themselves in the same basket as Comedy Central. They put themselves in the same basket with all the nightly talk shows, with Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, and all those guys, and they put themselves in the same basket as SNL. And that's just the reality of where we're at. Is it fucked? Yes, but it is the reality. So you can accept it or you can't.
Well, whether I accept it or not, it is. I can do is it right or wrong? And if I'm going to say, if I need to say, can I accept that really dumb is now the state of our government and our country and our politics, then, well, deal with it. I'm going to keep speaking out, because if I need to think that Saturday Night Live or The Daily Show should be held to the same standards as CNN or Fox or all that, I cannot get there, and I will not get there. They're not the same standard.
I don't know who is asking you to hold them to the same standard.
It sounds like you just were.
No, all I'm saying is that they are now all pulling for the same people. They're all pulling for the same.
Okay, is that not the same thing?
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, but I mean, SNL is not held to the standard of report, because SNL
or is a Daily Show or is
the Daily Show. Listen, you are hanging on to, but it's comedy.
No,
but
I'm
it's
not.
It's comedy. It's comedy that has chosen to enter itself into the arena,
and it's done it for 50 years or more.
Okay,
or more.
But either way, it has entered itself into the arena, and Fox News, and they have to combat it because their viewers has to deal with people who watch that and use it as news. Now, and their fear is, all right, if we don't give our viewers the necessary tools to combat the people who are watching The Daily Show or getting their news from Samantha Bee or Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert, if we don't give them the necessary tools, there's a chance that they may believe what those people are saying. They may pull them to our side, and we may lose viewers. Right? I mean, that is the reality of and that's not necessarily Fox's fault. That's part of it is on the citizenry, but it is on Fox, because Fox and all these other cable news networks went away from just being objective, reporting the news, and injecting their opinions, right? And injecting, all this back and forth, where you have one central guy, whether it's Bill O'Reilly or Tucker Carlson, spewing all their cultural epithets at you, and then they bring in these arguing guests who they can talk over, and they've gotten away from just saying this is what happened, this is when, this is where, this is why. Here's someone who's there who knows more about it. We'll talk to them, and then they say, "Wow, that's something." Move on to the next story. That's not what we do anymore.
What you just said is 100% true. I'm just saying that's the problem. To put
fair,
okay,
we could say it's a problem as long.
Well,
but, I mean,
so then let's you and I as smaller, somewhat smaller, all right, much smaller level media people say that's fucked up, and listen to Whiskey Congress, listen to Political Storm, listen to CNN and Fox, and don't let Fox and CNN, from a news standpoint, compete with Comedy Central, and more importantly, call out Alex Jones and all these other.
Well, here's the problem, though. Here's the problem. Right. I think that when you listen to Fox and CNN, the problem is that they're not, like you say, don't listen to Comedy Central because
listen, just don't treat them at the same level.
Well, the problem is that I need Fox and CNN and everything else. I need them to hold themselves to a higher level, to a higher standard.
Yes.
Than what they're currently doing.
So when Fox or CNN want to lower themselves to, let's argue with Saturday Night Live, let's cry about Michelle Wolf, whatever, just stop it. If you're at that level, then don't call yourself news. Fox, by the way, legally doesn't even call themselves news. They call themselves an entertainment channel. And the easily led fools in the American public, and there are easily led fools on the right and the left, and I won't try to
easily led fools are our listeners, so up.
Let's hope the smart people who want to hear what we have to say will get smarter because of what we have to say and not be on that level. All right, man, we've been going at it for a while. It's been a fun talk. I wish we could have done this face-to-face. I wish I could have been drinking whiskey, although, frankly, it probably would have gone way further south. We've been over an hour and 15 minutes now. We haven't done a Come At Me Bro yet. You ready for that?
Yeah, I am ready.
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
You go first. Mine's a little lighter this week. So
all right. Well, mine is actually pretty light, too.
Okay.
Because Michael Avenatti, the lawyer for Stephanie Clifford, a.k.a. Stormy Daniels, is now on every major media outlet talking about porn, politics, and doing whatever the fuck he wants. How much do you wish you could be Michael Avenatti?
So actually, this is not a light topic right now, and I from a legal standpoint, from that of an attorney, I actually don't envy his position at all. He is in a position where he is fighting an uphill battle. He's got very limited resources, and the people that he's fighting, they have all the resources in the world, and they have control of major media outlets. And so I actually don't like porn is all fun and good in games when you're watching it on your computer. But when you're trying to do something as serious as, bring allegations against the president of the United States, like, I mean, I don't think Michael Avenatti is sitting there, watching porn between interviews with CNN and MSNBC. So, I mean, all seriousness, I don't envy his
I wasn't
position.
going for seriousness, but go ahead.
I know. I'm sorry. It's hard to.
That's okay. Fair. I came at you. It's good.
I look at this guy and I see what he's doing, and he's doing a good job. Listen, he doesn't have. He can't afford to sit back and be quiet. Otherwise, he'll get steamrolled. He will absolutely get steamrolled. He's got to fight, and he's got to do his fighting through the media without harming his client. So the only way to do that is to attack attack Donald Trump and company. And to his credit, he's doing that pretty well. And so while it seems lighthearted and fun, talking porn and doing lawyer stuff and doing interviews and politics and everything else, the reality is he's doing what he has to do to help his client. And so I do commend the job that he's doing. It seems there are people who are going to criticize him, but they're only criticizing him because she's a porn star. That's the fucked up part about it. Right? Like their only thing is, yeah, well, your client's a porn star. Like, okay, yeah, well, you suck at sex in general. So which is worse? It's just he's in a tough spot. I do appreciate the effort that he's putting in, and hopefully it comes to a peaceful end. When you got this high level of politics and this amount of money involved, with the people and the money that they have, sometimes these things don't end well, and so hopefully it does, and hopefully maybe he's able to build his career off of it. I don't know.
The reason I use that as my topic is because I think it combines several of things that you love: porn, media, publicity, and law. I mean, I thought this was like the convergence, but I was being light of a serious issue, but I thought it was funny. All right,
sorry,
your turn. Come at me, bro.
All right, this is White. We were talking about the beer from Dave in Philly.
Yes.
I was talking about my theory, and so my come at me, bro, is when you make a Manhattan.
Oh no.
And you claim that you're easing up on the whiskey. I'm telling you that under no circumstances are you actually easing up on the whiskey. You're only just drinking more basically pure whiskey other than a cherry. Come at me, bro, and tell me I'm wrong.
You are completely wrong. It's all about rate of consumption. So when you and I go to the bar and do our pre-show talks and we throw down shots of Jameson, that hits you fast. Now, I can go total pharmacokinetics on you here and talk about how alcohol consumption and rate of consumption matters. Or I can just point out exactamundo.
No, stop. I know the difference between doing shots of whiskey and sipping on whiskey, whether it's in the form of a Manhattan or an old fashioned or a goddamn whiskey sour. Okay. But the way we typically drink whiskey in studio is, especially when we're doing our reviews, we pour whiskey into a cup. Neat.
That's different. Right? All right. Yes, you're right.
Okay. We pour a glass. We take a bottle of whiskey. We pour it into 2 rocks glasses. Neat.
Yes.
Nothing else in it.
Right.
Pure whiskey, and we consume it at a slow rate.
Yes.
Right. 1, to rate it, and 2, to enjoy it. Then sometimes we take a pause, and you say, "Well, I've had enough of that. I'm gonna slow things down. I'm gonna make myself a Manhattan. You want one? No, I do not want a 10 high Manhattan, Jim. I will just stick with soda water and Blanton's. Okay. And you then pour yourself a Manhattan with 10 high whiskey and vermouth and a cherry.
And ice, which I then sip at a much slower rate than the rate at which you consume whiskey, which I will not allow you to consume Blanton's that I have not purchased while I'm drinking in Manhattan, unless I've actually done that.
Bitch, I don't need you to buy Blanton's. I'll buy 2 bottles of Blanton's and I'll drink them in front of you and not share. Stop.
Bring it.
That has nothing to do with it.
All right. My point is that
whatever.
When you sip a beverage versus drink it quickly, like we both do when we're not shooting it, the rate of consumption is slowed down when it's on the rocks with vermouth, which is at like 16%.
You are literally just making this shit up as you go.
No, I'm not. Accurate. All right. You know what? I am not wrong here. But I have not been wrong most of the night. Hey, Steven, look, I always love talking to you. I wish we could have done this one in person. This was a fun talk. A lot of headbutting. I introduced some new coworkers to the fact that I do the show tonight. If they listen, who knows what they will think. If I lose my job over this, well, fuck it.
I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm good I'm lined up. All right. You ready to call it a night, brother?
Yeah, let's shut it down.
All right, let's shut it down. At Whiskey Congress on all social media. at Whiskey, or was there Whiskey Congress on? We're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're on and pretty much anywhere you get podcasts. We've also been working a lot with Political Storm, enjoying that. We could not do a video this week because we were not face to face. We'll do that again soon. Throw one more in. Any more thoughts to throw in there? Or shut it down.
Israel strikes Iranian targets in Syria after Golan Heights attack. So
what?
Israel strikes Iranian targets in Syria after Golan Heights attack. So yeah.
All right. So by the time you hear this, we'll know more. But fucking A, dude, right. This could be one of those things that preceded the real news. We were ahead of the game on a bunch of news stories over the course of the show. I hope this is not another serious one. All right, brother. Good talking to you. Get some sleep. I will try to reach out to you this weekend.
All right, man.
Later.
Yep.